The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch UK Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. You're listening to Paranormal Concept right here on Parasearch UK Radio with your host, Paul Rook.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Paranormal Concept. I'm your host, Paul Rook, and I am joined in the studio tonight by Kerry Green. Hello, Kerry.
Hello there, Paul. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, it's been a good week. How about yours?
It has. Yeah, not bad at all, thank you.
Good. So, tonight's show, what's it all about?
We're talking skepticism in the paranormal field, and I brought two lovely gentlemen along tonight for the ride.
Okay, I because you brought them along, I'm going to let you introduce them, so go for it, Kerry.
Well, first up, I've got the lovely Kerr, who I always adore, so good evening, Kev.
How you doing, guys? All right?
Yep, all good this end. Yeah.
And I've also brought along a gentleman that I've recently come across called Rob Lee, who writes a blog called Skeptics. So I thought, bring us all into the studio. Let's have a little chat about skepticism in the paranormal field. So good evening, Rob.
Hello.
That's
it. Short and
That's
sweet.
it. Okay, so we light the torch, the fuse now, and ask a question about skepticism in the paranormal. Is there a need for it? What do you believe?
Which one?
Either one of you, because now
I saw this problem.
now I've asked the question. I'm running, so I'll speak to you again at the end of the show.
Do you want to go first, then, Rob?
Yeah, I'll go first. Essentially, I think that skepticism's separated from belief a lot in the paranormal field, and I think that's something that we need to avoid. I think we need to accept that just because you're ultimately a believer in paranormal phenomena or supernatural phenomena doesn't necessarily mean you can't approach it in a skeptical way. For me, what skepticism means is using critical thinking, using the scientific method to examine claims and to come to a conclusion about those claims, to possibly set up what I call dueling hypothesis. So you've got more than one idea about what could be the cause of a certain phenomena, and then assessing that critically. And there's no reason that if you're ultimately a believer, you can't use that method as well. I don't think there's this trope of skeptics versus believers that gets passed around the paranormal community a lot. And I think it's an illusion. It's a false dilemma. You don't necessarily have to be a believer or a skeptic. You can be somewhere in between, and you can be a mixture. Being skeptical just means how you're going to approach claims. It doesn't mean what you ultimately believe in terms of the paranormal. So,
okay. And Kev, what about you?
Oh, yeah, brilliantly put. It's I think within the paranormal, we've got a massive issue where people believe that the skeptics are the cynists. There's a lot of cynicism towards people in the paranormal, which is fair enough. But when one of us come along and say, well, actually, it might not be what you think it is, people then think we're just there to sort of rain on their parade. We are kind of, I think, as a field, I'm not going to use that word, but the one that ends in unity, we don't need that. What we need is for the same way skeptics, or most skeptics, should I say, accept the way other people look at things, is a lot of the believer side and a lot of the people who are sort of deep into the paranormal field and they love the idea that it could all be real, to realise that skeptics aren't trying to just stand on that. We're not coming in to destroy a point of view. We're just there to say, well, actually, this is what the research says. This is what this could be. We're relatively innocent. We're quite nice people.
I think if you let skeptics do what they do as well, it clears the field for, if you believe there is actual evidence out there and you think there's actually paranormal phenomena, then you should welcome skeptics coming in and clearing up the things that maybe muddy the waters, and things that can be debunked, and things that can be removed from that field of interest and can be explained. Then surely, if you're a believer who ultimately thinks you're going to find some evidence of the paranormal, you should welcome low-hanging fruit being removed from the field of view, so that's clearer. Then surely, then if evidence comes in, well, it's not, those wacky believers again, throwing out more blurs on photographs as evidence. It's something solid, and I think if we all work together more, we could help establish more clarity with regards to anything that might be considered actual evidence.
Okay, so what do you believe? What about when someone posts a picture on social media and there's an orb in it? Do you believe that?
I can't believe you're asking this question, Paul. Seriously.
Do you believe, right, that they think it's a spirit? Or do you think there's a more logical reason behind that?
Well, there's always going to be a logical reason. I think the issue we kind of have in the field is anyone can join. So any sort of person can get involved, anyone off the street, basically. And they might have bought into the kind of media side of it where orbs are real. So they found almost instantly that, I found a ghost because I've caught an orb on camera. But a lot of them at that point also come in with absolutely no flexibility to the way they think. Yeah. They've just come in full blast and said, that's definitely a ghost. And that's quite exciting for them, but then obviously if we come along with an explanation, we'll just make things a lot worse.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, I've had this conversation with so many people, because when people put those pictures up, it's like head in hands. It's like, oh my God, really?
Mm-hmm.
Do these people not realise that it's not a spirit? But they will still sit there and argue with you.
Yeah.
And it just drives me mad. So I just wanted to know what your take on that.
I think that there's it makes me a little bit sad, because it tells me that maybe skeptics and people who take a skeptical approach we're not as effective as we should be, because those people who are still attached to our photos, they're possibly not coming across accurate information, and it's not as freely available. I think part of the problem of that is we tend to form echo chambers on social media. So we tend to have people in our news feeds, and we tend to be in groups with people who are like-minded and they agree with us. And that just perpetuates bad ideas.
Yeah.
And I think maybe if skeptics could work on outreach more, so we could actually approach these people and get to them and show them where they're going wrong, essentially. Because the orb one is one that's, I think what blows it all out of the water for me is, if you look at paranormal photography, the interesting thing about it is it's evolved alongside photography itself. So the different errors in photography and the different mistakes and technical flaws have always followed it. So you had double exposures, and now you've got orbs, you had slow shutter speed, and you've got something that's coming in, the panoramic effect, when someone's taking a panoramic picture, and it can splice a moving object, which can cause a really creepy effect. And we're seeing that more and more now. So the thing about paranormal phenomena and orbs, we didn't have orbs in the 1920s, 1940s in early photography. Now we've got it with digital photography more and more. And now we're getting this panoramic effect. And I think that's my main argument about a lot of paranormal photography is look at the way it's evolving alongside photography. That's not a coincidence. That is the technical flaw, carrying a different technical flaw being picked up as quote-unquote paranormal.
Yeah.
Oh, I totally agree with you. No, I totally agree with that. I didn't realise until I was educated. But we're back to the point we were talking before the show, that it's about education and whether or not somebody wants to be educated.
I do think there's a lot of people out there that when, say for example myself, if they come across those, if I see these orb photographs, for example, and I normally go back to the ASSAP. They've got a whole page on their website explaining what they are, explaining the camera angles and how you can get rid of it and how you can stop it and stuff. And I will normally share that page. But it's almost, for someone that isn't well educated on the orb phenomenon, isn't it almost like me saying, well, I'm a little bit better than you, here's the information?
I think that depends in your approach. I don't necessarily. I think you have to do it quite gently, and obviously, it's as Kerry we were discussing in the preamble. Sometimes it's hard to know what context to view something in when you just type into someone on the internet. So I try and take a softly approach. I used to be a lot more robust and stringent, but I've softened a lot over the last few years while I've been doing this, and I try and take a softly approach and gently direct someone, because there's that expression, Rome wasn't built in a day. And just because someone pushes back against you and they're resistant to you doesn't mean you've not planted a seed. If they've gone to that website and maybe taken a look and clicked off it, that's planting the idea in their head that, okay, maybe there's another explanation for this. And I think sometimes that seed planting is really important. And even if they give you a pushback, especially what I find is if someone is really aggressive to you straight away, I think sometimes that gives you a good indication that you've maybe shaken them a little bit, and they're going to go away and think about that. It's going to be something that maybe they can't push to the back of their mind, and they might go back and click on that link. They might, agonise over it, but you've planted that seed, and sometimes it grows, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, that's a good point, because this kind of would parationalise when I first sort of started. It was, as I said before the show, it was a bit of a let-out for me. But as it being a bit of a let-out, it was a lot more aggressive, and kind of my approach to, I sort of saw everyone as an idiot. It was like, why are you not seeing this the way I'm seeing it? Something I learned over the past, God knows how many years now, is you need that educational approach. That's why I bought the website out, was in order to give someone something to look at and say, okay, I'm going to read it. And it wasn't kind of pushed down their throats. It was more of a, well, there it is. It's up to you to take that step. That would be the end of my argument, was basically, okay, fair enough, but there has been research done. Here's research so far, or what I found. Take a look. That would be the end of the argument, purely because I would find my aggressive approach would work on a few people, but it wouldn't. I don't know. It kind of created armies of believers, really, where instead of trying to sort of work alongside you, they were trying their best to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
Then they wouldn't take your point, and that'd be the end of it then.
To be honest, I'd be interested to know, Kev, if you kind of started blogging and writing and the website for similar reasons that I did, that essentially I just got really tired of explaining myself on different groups over and over again. So in the end, I thought, right, I'm going to have to write all these objections in one place.
That's it.
And then just go and put a link on, instead of having to engage in the same discussion. Because what I find interesting with social media, I'm sure Kev has picked up on this too, with the things that are purported to be paranormal, they move in cycles. The viral paranormal stuff never really goes away. It's like one of the first things I wrote about was this image of a supposed demon hovering above a patient's bed.
Yeah, that old chestnut.
Yeah, essentially it's pareidolia, and when you break the image down and section it off, you can see its various elements of the room. It's the patient's legs sticking out of the bedclothes. It's a coat hanging behind him, but I find that image comes in the last 4 years. It keeps coming back. So these things are cyclical. They move in cycles. Mm-hmm. So I found having all your information in one place, you're not repeating yourself over and over again ad nauseum. You can just put that link on and go, okay, if people pick that up and run with it, great. If they don't, I'll get the opportunity to do this again in 6 months. So
yeah. No, that's exactly, funnily enough, I actually had an argument on one page, which I'm not part of anymore, was because I'd post a link to certain pages, and then I was accused of, so you can't even be bothered to debate this with us, you're just going to post it there. And my answer was, well, this doesn't change, so there's no point in me arguing with you. You come to that decision yourself, because otherwise it becomes too much hard work then.
And to be honest, you'd throw the towel in really quick, because you'd have the same conversation over and over again. And in the end, you'd just walk away and you wouldn't bother doing it anymore. So I think it's the only way to maintain your sanity and stay interested.
It's definitely true, yeah.
So as both skeptics, do you get a lot of negative feedback?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's I do wonder when I hear believers saying, we're being horrible, as a skeptic, especially me myself as being horrible. I think to myself, well, funnily enough, anything I post, and we said this before the show, is that anything you post, you've got to be ready with a shield and a sword, because it's going to come back at you tenfold. Yeah. It's 100 on 1 every single time, and you kind of end up in a situation where you do get to the point where you think, oh, why am I even bothering? Yeah. But it is kind of a love for doing it that you say, okay, well, no, this is the actual way forward, and as a whole in the field, we kind of want to push forward. And what these guys are doing, these people who are sort of coming back saying, no, orbs are real, this is true, that's true, they're just holding it in one place. It's just static the whole time. There's a few individuals. I think Rob, you did. Was it? I can't remember what it was called. Was it Who Invited You?
Oh yeah, I wanted, as a result of the discussion I'd had online, and one of the main focuses of the discussion was, well, you're a skeptic. Why are you involved in the paranormal? And I wrote a post to defend my position, and I think the outcome of the post is I'd be happy to walk away from the paranormal field and the paranormal community if I thought and I'd be a bystander on the sidelines, if I thought that, people are employing skepticism now, people in the paranormal community are eliminating the weak data themselves, I don't need to do it anymore. I'd be quite happy to walk away if that were the case. But I think until that is the case, I think it's important that there are people there, and as well that they're there in numbers to say, okay, well, take a look at this, and let's. A lot of what I find I do is just offer an alternative hypothesis of saying, well, you've got the supernatural hypothesis now, you've got that supernatural claim. Let's let's see if I can offer you a claim, maybe that's not supernatural in nature, and then you can judge for yourself which claim you think is more likely or more rational. You might want to believe the supernatural claim, but ultimately, which argument stands on its own and which doesn't.
Okay.
But with the idea of criticism, though, I don't mind negative feedback. It really doesn't bother me. I had a chap calling me a moron only today, and I'd love it if we could take his objections and turn it into something useful. Let's have a discussion. Okay, you think I'm a moron? Let's talk about why. And then it's something useful. The only kind of feedback I don't like is when people ascribe your motivation to you. So they'll tell you, well, this is why you're doing this, and this is what you mean to this. And that really, really annoys me, because unless you know me, you don't know my motivation. I can explain my motivation very clearly. I enjoy what I do, and I like to reach people. But when you're accusing me of doing it for... jealousy is the main one that you get all this. Oh, you're just jealous of, whoever. You're just jealous of, Steve Huff, and he's. Oh God, it's not jealousy. I can see that he's misleading people. I could mislead people. I mislead my family frequently. I do it all the time. I'm not jealous of that. He's just lying to people on greater numbers. That's all. So that's when people ascribe motivation to what you're doing without having a clue about who you are, and especially when, I know you'll get this all the time, when people give you negative feedback and it becomes very apparent they haven't even read your post.
Yeah.
That's I call it the blogger's curse. When the first comment you get back reiterates a point that you've made in the post, but in an objectionable way, so you know that they've not read the post. That's very frustrating. It's something you just have to get over.
I remember once I put at the end of one post, if you've read all the way down to this point, please put in the comments. I think it was something like the K2's gone to 4 or 5 LEDs or something. Yeah. And I think out of all I sort of had about 120 hits, and I think about 5 people commented, and then I can imagine people were looking, thinking, "What are they talking about?" But it's true. You put these things up, and I've even found in presentations in front of people.
Yeah,
you go through the presentation, and then they come back with a question which you answered in the presentation. You're thinking, as I mentioned here, and you kind of bring it back, and then it's really strange. I think some people just choose to turn off at certain points.
I think sometimes people have that. They have their objection or their question in their head from the beginning of your talk or your blog or what they're reading, and then they can't wait to get that question or objection out there and don't actually pay attention to what's been said or what's been wrote. So
that's it.
But I mean, half the time the objections I cover in the first paragraph because I've got quite good at telegraphing what certain objections are going to be, and I like to cover it quick. Yeah. And then you can tell very basically that someone hasn't even clicked on the link then. When you get objections to the thumbnail that Facebook has, because Facebook will choose a thumbnail for your post. Yeah. And when you get objections to the thumbnail that's been put up, it's like, come on, go in and read it, and at least, see maybe if we agree with each other before you start shouting at me.
I think people can be lazy, to be honest with you. I mean, where I advertise events, I make up a really good eye-catching poster and put all the information on, like the times, the price, and everything of the event, and I still get people asking me what date. It's like, it's big bold letters across the poster, and you want, But so I think it's more to do with the fact that people are lazy and they don't want to read.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
it's true. It's true. It's a shame though, because that's kind of what holds up a lot in the paranormal. that want to be in the paranormal and want to be an investigator and be able to turn around to friends and go, oh, I go after ghosts, and people think back to like Ghostbusters and things. I think it's quite cool.
Yeah.
But they can't be bothered to do the research. They're quite happy to run around with a load of cameras in the dark like they see on telly, but they won't actually sit down and go, okay, well, this is one theory I've got. Maybe it's something to do with the brain, and sit down and do research and find points and go, actually, I wonder if anyone's come up with the sort of hypothesis that I've come out with from what I can see from the science. Okay, let's see what's happening. And then they'll begin to find more and more steps. I call it the rabbit hole, because usually you go down one of them, it just keeps going and going and going.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but no one seems to want to bother with that. And those that do, you see a good evolution from a very amateur investigator to someone who actually becomes a researcher, and then usually they become skeptics quite quickly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it is one of those situations.
No, I agree with that. We actually have a couple of questions that have come up in the chat room already. So thank you ever so much for everybody that's joined us in the chat room, because it is, again, a very busy chat room tonight. You mentioned some gadgets, one of them being the Wonderbox. And somebody has actually asked, what's your take on the Wonderbox, Alex Box, and other devices like that?
So are we talking, the Frank's box, or the whoever creates a box that talks to you?
Yeah.
Insert name here.
I'm not mentioning their names. I'm just mentioning the names of the gadgets.
I mentioned the name. Sorry, that's my fault.
That was a question from Bob
He
Yobbins.
should not be named.
So, to me, from what I can see of it, it's okay. It does what it does. It, as that video I did with the doll, the haunted dolls with the orange. It comes forward with things, and then we ourselves obviously put that information together, and then we decide what we hear or what we want to hear. I'm going to have about 20 people turn around and say, well, actually, once it said to me this, and we happen to be in that situation, but that can be down to coincidence. But I find with those boxes, they are almost a complete waste of time, because people just switch them on and let them do what they need to do. No one actually looks into them and says, okay, well, how do they work? Oh, I see now. Okay. I see it from a psychological standpoint, because I always have. It's a kind of that, I want to use the word matrix in, but it's just not the right word to use. When you look at that audio pareidolia and the kind of crap that comes out of these boxes, people want whatever they want from it. So if someone was sat in a room and they wanted it to be demons and something scary, then that box can make any noise it wants, and they will connect to it. So personally, to me, I don't think there's anything in it at all. As an opinion, as research, so far I haven't really found anything into it either.
Well, the interesting thing about the boxes that kind of give you snatches of sound, our language is built on, what are they called? I think they're called phonons, which are, someone's going to correct me, hopefully. The little tiny snatches of sounds, and our language is essentially based on that. Mm-hmm. But essentially, these are tiny little sounds, so it's so easy for a collection of other sounds to sound like it's composed of, something phonetic, and to make a word. The problem with those boxes is you can never remove the subjectivity of the person who is holding the box. Mm-hmm. So with the box, the ovulus that throws out the word, as soon as that word appears on the screen, that person holding the box is looking for the meaning of that word. That is the ovulus, isn't it, that throws out it's got the database of words. I'm right, aren't I? So they're going to look for that meaning of the word. I don't know if any of you watched the Low Files. I wouldn't personally recommend it, but in it they use the ovulus, and it's an interesting example of that kind of subjectivity. They're in a corridor. It comes up with the word pie. Now, if that were you or I, we might laugh at that and go, pie, what the hell? But they're like, well, the kitchen's that way. Maybe that's because the kitchen's down the hall, and it's it's all about your interpretation. And I think what paranormal investigators need to get more proficient at, if anything, is removing their own subjectivity from the from the data that they receive, and saying, well, okay, a device like the Ovulus, a device like the Frank's box, there's no actual way of you removing subjectivity from it. So it's not actually a useful tool to use at all. Because
would it not be better if you recorded what was coming through and then give it to someone that wasn't actually on the investigation?
You could do that.
Would that be better?
That's what I've always suggested that paranormal groups do if they collect EVP or any kind of ITC. If you take it, don't analyse it yourself, present it to an independent third party who don't know anything about the situation. I'd actually present it to a whole control group of people who don't know anything about the situation.
I usually keep it to 10 non-paranormal people.
And let them assess and see what they hear in that. And what you'll normally find is everybody has a different interpretation, and that's because of the subjectivity of it. But it's important that paranormal investigation teams present the EVP correctly. Because as far as I'm concerned, if I'm presented with a piece of EVP or ITC, if there are words on the bottom of the screen telling me what that voice says, it's useless, because I will hear what you're telling me to hear. That's the nature of suggestion and subjectivity. You will hear what they are suggesting that you hear in most cases, unless it's something radically different. And that's
go on.
What you'll find is the people who present EVPs always present it with captioning on the screen, and that is it. Essentially, you're just invalidating that as any kind of data. I'm not going to take it seriously because you've not even tried to eliminate possible reasons why people might get what they're getting, and that's not doing science. It's not an investigative method, and it's pretty useless. Go on, Gab. Sorry, mate.
That's fine, man. It's the same as, like I said, I usually use 10 non-paranormal related people, although the only issue I have is a lot of people know I'm into the paranormal. But if there was a situation where I did come across something, I usually use my voice recorders and my cameras purely to document things. I'm usually watching everyone else in the team or recording an interview. But if I did come across something, that's a bit strange, is just find 10 random people who, you either know through Facebook or, they're not directly connected to the paranormal. Send them the email or send them pre and just say, look, this is a situation. I'm going to be sending you some sound bites over the next, say, 6 months. If possible, could you just email me back and tell me what you hear?
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the last communication you have with them until you find something. And you'll send across just that snippet of that noise, that you found. And you won't write, me and my paranormal team were investigating the Dudley Castle or whatever. You just send that, and they know that it's from you, and all they want you to do is listen to it and send back what they hear. And that only minimises that doesn't even get rid of completely that situation where they're going to listen to it and go, I hear Rosemary, or anything like that. Everyone's going to hear something different. And to sort of back up your point before, when you mentioned about the word pie come through, I thought of mathematics. I wasn't even thinking about
that's right,
pie as in the food, So it was like it just goes to show like the differences. Some people will go to pie as in an actual pie, or pie as in from mathematics, or with EVPs and with anything that we document in that sense, it's really quite useless. Yeah. And I think what I found hard sort of early on when I believed in the paranormal and I was becoming more skeptical was it was so difficult to let go of the fact that actually there might not be anything there, at all. And to also continue that journey then after you've come to that conclusion that there's a good possibility that you're not going to get anywhere. You're just going to keep doing these things again and again. But that's something you have to come to on your own. That you can't ever sort of mold someone into that way of thinking. It takes a long time. But
with the idea of like a nil result, it's important to remember that the process of science isn't always linear, and negative results are important in science. You look at the most famous negative result, obviously, was the luminescence ether, which obviously we thought light travel through a medium. We discovered, because of the Michelson and Morley experiment, that light doesn't travel through it, and it's the most important. It allowed us to move forward. We probably wouldn't have relativity without that discovery. We probably wouldn't have a lot of quantum physics, a lot of quantum chromodynamics wouldn't have happened because of that null result. And that's why I always say I have a lot of respect for paranormal investigators, a lot of respect. If you are going out and you are collecting null results, don't be disappointed, don't be downhearted. You are doing science. Nil results are important in science. And remember, the process of science isn't always linear. The most important scientific cosmological discovery that we made was evidence of the Big Bang, that fossil background radiation of the Big Bang. Yeah. That came about because two scientists crawled inside a radio antenna to scrape out what they called white dielectric material, which is essentially pigeon shit. It's important. If you're going out there getting the nil result, then this isn't a very poetic way of looking at it, but you're scraping out the pigeon shit, and that's important.
It is.
But there you go, and that's what I like to think I'm doing. You scraping away the useless stuff so we can get to anything that's important, that's vital. I think parapsychologists have got. I think there's an untapped stream maybe for psychologists themselves to look at what paranormal investigators are doing, and kind of the nature of fear and the nature of tense situations. And I imagine if psychologists could have a field day with EVP in studying the ideas of pareidolia. Sorry, there are important things to find with paranormal researchers. There are important paths to follow. They might not necessarily lead to the discovery of a ghost or psi phenomena or telepathy or anything else, but they might lead to a greater understanding of our nature and psychology. So
that's exactly right. This is how I find an answer is an answer.
Yeah,
that's the way to look at it. Sort of, you can look into something and you can find out it's not correct. Yeah. And I think I find that a lot, especially over sort of my journey through it, is you find a lot of things aren't correct, but at the same time is you also need the ability to flex, the ability to kind of go, okay, well, this isn't true, but actually now, say 4 years down the line, we've found something that actually connects back to that. Yeah. And then you have to be able to kind of go, well, no, I know that's not true. That's it. You have to be able to go, okay, let's have a look at that again. Let's pick that back up. Let's look into it. I think that's something that's actually real within the paranormal field. It is missing a lot. It's that difference. So say about like the cynicism side of it, where people go, no, we know that's not real. That's it.
Yeah.
And I think that's how people kind of look at skeptics, where really skeptics are quite flexible. You show the evidence. Yeah, we're going to look at it.
Well, that's what we hear a lot. I'm sure you come across this, Kev, a lot. Skeptics dismiss things out of hand. Now, I'll come across that. Well, you've just dismissed this footage of a ghost moving a chair out of hand. Well, no, I've just spent 12 hours studying that video in slow motion, close up. And I've spotted fishing wire and I've screen capped it for you, and I've wrote a nice little grammatically incorrect blog for you about it. I haven't dismissed that out of hand. I'm not a cynic. I've spent the time. I've probably spent a lot more time looking at that that most believers do, who share it on their wall and go, okay, we'll look at this ghost move in a chair. I've spent the time looking at that in slow motion, and you're not dismissing something out of hand. A true skeptic, it doesn't dismiss things out of hand. If they're studying it and they can say, well, okay, I found a rational explanation to that, that is the opposite of dismissing something out of hand. It's studying something. And, I think we talk about dismissing things out of hand a lot. We don't talk about accepting things out of hand a lot. And I think that's the problem that the paranormal field has. It's not people who want to study things in depth and come to an answer. It's the people who want to accept it immediately without studying it. That's the problem. That's why skepticism's needed. So.
Okay. Do you think that because at the moment the paranormal is a pseudoscience and not many scientists are getting involved in looking at some of the unexplained things that are going on, do you think as time goes on they're going to get more and more serious about it?
It's more the label, to be fair. There's a lot of things in science, and I used to say exactly as you say, scientists need to get involved. They need to, look at this and say, okay, there's something in this. But the more and more pushed on, the more we're going to realise that actually it's us who need to be trying the science and giving that foundation and say, okay, happy days. But also realise that a lot of what happens has already been researched by science, not necessarily called the paranormal. It's already been discovered. We already know a lot of reasons why things happen, and we've got very good evidence to back up why they do. And it's not the answer that the paranormal has come out with. It's that evolution within the paranormal that needs to happen. That kind of okay, well, we know the answer now. We'll move on. We'll take another step now. We've got this amount of information, brilliant. And the more we keep doing that, the more scientists will actually turn around and go, actually, I think they're onto something here. And it's not necessarily going to say yes, there's demons in the world or ghosts in the world. It's going to say something. And as Rob said about psychology of people, we're going to realise that actually we interact with things maybe differently than we thought we did before. If we just give up on the afterlife for now, and put a lot of things behind us that we kind of cloud things with and take a step forward, I actually believe then it will actually become part of a scientific bracket, but that's not going to happen in my lifetime. That's something that will take a lot of time.
Yeah, it's important to remember though that pseudoscience is something that has particular qualities about it, and if the paranormal at the moment is a pseudoscience, if paranormal research is a pseudoscience, which I agree with Kev, it absolutely is at the moment. It's because of the way it's being conducted, and the only remedy for that is to improve methods of conduction, to make sure it's conducted better, more rigorously. In truth, that's the only way that science will ever pay attention to the paranormal. But you've got a big hurdle to overcome when science turns around and starts taking the paranormal seriously, if it ever does, which again, I don't necessarily think will ever happen. Because when you've got public perception of the paranormal, muddies the waters. And you've got to remember scientists are essentially just members of the general public as well. And when they see things like Most Haunted and Ghost Hunters and, the Demon Files or whatever, that isn't going to help matters, because they're going to put all, like these new paranormal teams that spring up and copy those methods, scientists are also going to put paranormal investigators in that bracket. So it's important that paranormal investigators try and break out of that stricture of following those programs. But the hurdle that you're going to have to overcome if a scientist ever turned and looked at the paranormal is paranormal investigators have to get a hell of a lot more comfortable with peer review, which they are not at the moment. And you find this with parapsychology. Parapsychologists cannot deal with peer review. They become very bitter, very aggressive about being reviewed. They complain that mainstream science doesn't look at parapsychology. Then when mainstream science does look at parapsychology, they say they've approached it wrong and they shouldn't be treating it. So parapsychologists tend to want special treatment for parapsychology, and that isn't going to happen. Peer review isn't a nice process. It's vicious. If you look at the way Stephen Hawking ripped into a recent paper about a new feature of black holes, that must have devastated the people who wrote that paper, knowing who Stephen Hawking is, knowing that he essentially was responsible fundamentally for almost everything we know about black holes in a way. And he said at the end of this paper, I'd rather scrap the idea of black holes entirely than accept the right. That must have been devastating, but they haven't, took to a blog and complained about it. They haven't appeared on a podcast saying how unfair he is. They've said, okay, let's prove it. Quite often you'll have, I have paranormal investigators because they know I'm studying physics. They'll throw up the example of Einstein and say, well, look at the way the physics community pushed back against general relativity. And that is true. The physics community did not want to accept that Newtonian laws were incomplete. So what happened? People like Eddington went out and experimentally verified that Einstein was right, that general relativity is right. You can't complain about peer review. You can't complain about that pushback. But if that's part of the field that you want to be in, you've got to accept it. And that's why I've never apologised for doing a peer review on a paranormal investigation team. If they think I've been unfair, well, I'm sorry. If you're going to call yourself scientific, that's part of science. Sorry. More than blinking meters and, measuring EMF fields. Part of science is stringent peer review. Sorry.
I totally agree with that. And I know in myself that if I do ever come across any evidence that I can't explain, rather than saying, well, yeah, okay, this is paranormal, I would rather go to someone else and get a second and third opinion on what I found, because I might not have experienced that before, but someone else might. So just because I can't explain it doesn't make it paranormal for me.
Yeah. I mean, Kev mentioned paranormal unity before, that old trope that went around the internet that was essentially, let's not tear each other's evidence apart, and and then we can all be in this little club together where it doesn't matter what the skeptics say. I think we actually need paranormal disunity. We need more people to actually go, not throw silly barbs and insults at each other, but actually say, well, okay, we looked at this team's investigation and now they're going to look at ours and they're going to critique it, and not to take it personally and I think that's the kind of unity that the paranormal field needs, is not let's all turn a blind eye to each other's nonsense.
Yeah.
Let's actually scrutinise each other and let's help each other get better,
But I think that is what most people are actually trying to say when they say para-unity. I don't think they all mean like, oh, we'll all go our merry way and nobody say anything bad about anybody else. I think it is actually about, the serious people anyway out there are actually going, let's pull together. So if I can't explain it, you can, or if you don't know, then maybe we can work together to try and explain it, and respect each other and not have this pulling each other apart, like you said. It's not about para-unity in a happy family. It's para-unity as in, let's drive this field forward. Let's evolve this field, because it has got quite stagnant. It has got quite stale in places, and it is about driving the field forwards.
The way I see it, the problem isn't so much that it's getting stale and stagnant. The problem is that the new fruit that it's developing is rotten from the start, because the inspirations are all wrong. The form of paranormal investigation that's most easily digestible and most easy to come across is ultimately from the get-go fundamentally flawed. And that's the problem that people like Most Haunted, Ghost Hunters, new paranormal investigation teams that form. I was talking to a chap the other day. He was a lovely guy, but he named his team something scientific research. And when I questioned him a little bit, he didn't have the first clue about how to conduct something scientifically. He didn't know what, for example, a baseline was. If you don't have those fundamentals, I admire him wanting to get out there into the field and investigate something, but make sure you've got your fundamentals correct first before you pick a team name that looks great on a Facebook banner or on a tank top, but you failed to get your fundamentals right, and you're calling yourself scientific. There's a weight to that. When I always look for paranormal groups that put scientific in their description or in their name, because I immediately go, okay, you're fair game now, because you are making a very succinct claim when you call yourself scientific, and that is something that I can analyse and see if you actually are. And the problem with the field is what we're getting at the moment. The groups that are popping up, they're not. Their basics are fundamentally wrong, and it's only going to get worse in my opinion. While paranormal television's so accessible, while the tabloid papers, because the British tabloid papers have discovered paranormal investigators as a stream of revenue now. So they are looking for these groups to offer them quote unquote evidence so they can get them in paper. Essentially, it's just clickbait. They get the advertising revenue from it, and the ghost group gets a little bit of attention. And it's a worrying trend, because anyone looking to start a group going forward will look at their evidence, the attention they've received in the paper, and they'll chase the same thing too. And it's just lemmings running off the edge of the cliff, essentially. I know that doesn't really happen. Don't debunk that. It's not real.
To say then.
On this note, before we go further, I'm being nagged in the chat room over here. Talking about hype and attention, there's been an awful lot of attention on haunted dolls.
Oh, God.
Says it all, guys, in the chat room. I think that just says it all.
I've got 2 haunted dolls in the cupboard if anyone wants them, because they're just freaky. £400 each.
One.
Get them on eBay.
Apparently haunted one just sat right next to me, actually.
Oh, there you go. So
ready for my next video.
No, it has been asked in the chat room. I'm sorry, CJ. It has been asked several times. I've been nagged. I have been nagged about this in the chat room. So I'm putting it to you guys. Haunted dolls. Let's just throw it on the table. What do we reckon?
Well, I've been
throw
doing
it too hard, because you'll
my own
smash it.
research, obviously, for my second video. So I received from Corinne from South Bristol Paranormal a apparent haunted doll, and what I did is I brought it into the house without my partner knowing. Bless her, she became part of the experiment. And I put it into my office, and it sat there for 4 weeks with no apparent haunted activity, nothing going on at all, until after 4 weeks, where the penny dropped. And actually, funnily enough, Corinne was the one that told her that, oh, there's a haunted doll. Kev's got my haunted doll. In which she went, where? What are you on about? In our house? It's like, yes, it's in our house. And for the following weeks, that was the question, where is it? Where's this haunted doll? And you could see the panic and the change in her behaviour from me having just a doll, but a haunted doll in the house somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's all it is it's I remember being scared of dolls when I was younger. My sister had a couple of porcelain dolls, and I hated them with a passion. It was just
quite creepy.
Precisely. They're creepy. You look in the media, you look at the days when Chucky and Child's Play and things was coming out. Dolls are not, they're not the nicest thing ever. Some people like them, some people don't. But it's one of those things in the paranormal, just like the Ouija board, that's been manipulated to a point where they're supposed to be scary.
Yeah.
The problem is now, as I tried to prove with using the spirit box on that video, was that people are kind of making a mountain out of a molehill with it and saying, oh my God, this is that. And it's a good money spinner. You know, you look on eBay nowadays, compared to even a couple of years ago, you probably get, say, 10, 15 search, sort of hits on haunted dolls that are for sale. And now you're talking thousands, and they are just a money spinner. Yeah. And the whole Lee Steer situation, and then this haunted doll's been on Good Morning because now it's been on telly. It must be real. Yeah. You know, is one of those situations where it is just piling a whole lot more of that pigeon shit you're talking about, Rob, back into the chute. You know, it's like, and that is all they're doing. There's nothing to them. They're not possessed. There's no proof. You know, we've tried and we tried and we tried and we looked at it again and again. And from a psychological level, yes, it could induce what we might consider a haunting. But again, from a psychological standpoint, not from an actual attachment.
To be honest, I see it a little bit like the killer clown craze from last year and the year before. I think it's sprung up in a very, very similar way. I think it's interesting that it all exploded just before the release of the new Annabelle film. I don't know if the studio pushed that out quickly because you'd be expecting that film to come out around Halloween, and it kind of got an early release, and you wonder, maybe did Warner look at the fuss that was developing and think, we'll capitalise on that, or did they drive that a little bit? Because that wouldn't be the first time Warner have engaged in that kind of stuff. If you look at the way they trotted out Janet in the preparation for the publicity for The Conjuring 2, which was very loosely based on the Enfield case. They dragged that woman out to go over all this stuff that's old hat now, and she obviously offered a very different story than she offered initially. Yeah. Because when she first heard the film was being made, she made it quite clear that Ed and Lorraine Warren, she met them twice. And then her story changed about how influential they were, and they were the only people who could help. And I don't blame her, really, to be quite honest. In fact, I hope she got a nice little check out of it. Because, I wish her all the best, and I think I would like her to be able to put it behind her, but that made sure it couldn't happen. So if she made some financial gain out of it, then good for her. But I wouldn't be surprised if Warner hadn't contacted this doll owner and maybe stoked things up a little bit in preparation for Annabelle creation coming out.
That's an interesting take. So CJ has asked, do you think things or items can get attachments? What's your opinions on that, guys?
Well, I'm quite attached to my wine glass.
I'm permanently attached to that too.
I think attachments, again, I look at it from a psychological standpoint, I think when we say attachments, there's anything you can sort of hand over and someone can think is scary. Like I had a book of shadows, I don't know many people know about them, but obviously I bought this book of shadows, and all I did was buy it because it looked nice. It had a nice pentagram on the front. It was like really well made. I thought, oh, brilliant. And it just sat on my desk with all my other paranormal bits and bobs, and it was like, great. And my cousin came to visit, and she saw it, and she wouldn't go anywhere near it. She's like, that's right, just touch it, it's fine. She wouldn't go anywhere near it because this idea had a pentagram on the front of it. Yeah. And I think the idea of an attachment is that psychological thing where we go, that's a scary object, or if I touch that, I'm going to get cursed, or something's going to possess me, or anything basically that the media kind of have fueled to make scary films and to make things seem almost freaky. So to me, an attachment is a sort of psychological side of things. My phone, when you first get your phone and you don't want to you don't put it down in like the bathroom because it might get wet, or you don't, you got it in your pocket and you got it in a case and everything's protected. But about 3 months later, when you've lost that kind of connection to it, you throw it down on the side. You just crack on as normal. But that is the only way I look at it. Is a psychological, a sort of mass psychological way of looking at things, where you say to dolls, and you say like things like that book or the pentagram or all these things that are considered evil or will harm you. It doesn't take a lot for people to believe. All it takes is one person to kind of prompt that, and that will be the end of it. That will be an evil object.
To be honest, I'd approach it from a different angle, and I'd say, well, what's the mechanism? How can I suppose you're moving the problem a little bit, because you'd essentially say what is spirit? Because if you were looking for that to fit into a physical framework of the natural world, because if something exists and it can manipulate the natural world, then it is part of the natural world. You can't remove it and put it to some other plane, because that plane is then part of the natural world. If it interacts in the natural world, it's part of it. So what would be the mechanism by which a spirit could manipulate an object or become intrinsic within the object? I think the answer we probably get from a lot of proponents of this would be, it's something to do with energy, because we know objects can hold energy. Energy is a property of an object, but obviously that energy would then diminish. Let's say there was a spiritual energy, which I don't believe that there is. It's not part of the standard model of particle physics, not part of quantum field theory, but let's just allow that for a second. So let's say that energy becomes attached to my daughter's Elsa doll that's in front of me right now, staring at me, creeping me out. Then that energy would diminish over time. So if it gets up and moves and picks up a carving knife during the night, it's losing energy due to, it's generating heat as it's walking, its joints are generating heat, it's generating sound as its feet hit the floor, it's generating kinetic energy. So that energy is then less when I get up in the morning and there's a carving knife in my pillow and I come back down and the doll's got a sly look on its face. That the energy, that property of the doll is diminished. So obviously this would only last for a certain amount of time until that energy was gone. So I mean, and if you look at the kind of how much energy we have to take in calorifically to maintain kinetic energy, it wouldn't last very long at all, probably. So even if I was willing to accept there was some form of spiritual energy and it can animate an object, probably just, I don't know, stick it out in the backyard and let it run itself to death, and then it's done. So I wouldn't worry about haunted dolls too much.
I think you should just take the Duracell batteries out of it and just put in cheap ones.
Oh yeah, what if it's got batteries? Damn.
Yeah. If you put in cheap batteries, they tend to go down quite quick.
Yeah, why do batteries keep going down on this doll so quickly? Why is it on the roof? Growling at me.
That's it. Hide all sharp objects.
But fortunately, porcelain dolls don't tend to. I mean, if you catch it with batteries stuffed in its back, then and it's like a genuine porcelain doll, you know you've got problems.
Well, it depends on how inventive the doll is, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
Walk around with its own generator.
Yeah.
Well, if you've got a porcelain doll of Albert Einstein, well, you might as well just move now.
Just plug itself into its wonder box. It's fine. Oh my goodness. Yeah, let's set the chat room off, guys. Well done. Oh my goodness. I just want to give a quick shout out to all the people in the chat room. They've kept me chuckling for most of the evening. That's Mick, Karen, Rachel James, Steph James, Richard, Lindsay, Ginny, CJ and Mark. are all in the chat room, and they're having a right little. They're all skeptics by the looks of it. I think we can safely say. And it's Karen getting me to ask all these horrible questions, like dull questions and stuff. So you blame her. Just putting that out there.
Don't ask any of questions.
Oh dear.
Well, yeah, it's been an entertaining show. What can I say?
This is how it works.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're going to have to wrap it up soon. Now I need to move that doll. I don't like the way it's looking.
Batteries are getting a bit low. He needs to read.
Well, I think on that note, we have actually come to the end of the show. We've overrun by about 4 minutes, so slap my wrists. I just want to thank Kev and Rob for joining me on the show tonight. It's been absolutely amazing, and we've got to have you on again because the time just went so fast.
Yeah, I've had a great time. Thanks for having me. I don't remember laughing so much. It's nice to have a little laugh, isn't it, amongst all the seriousness. So.
Absolutely. And thank you, Kerry, for joining me and keeping an eye on the chat room for me.
Oh, it's been very entertaining tonight, so thank you guys in the chat room. It's been absolutely brilliant, and you're welcome, Paul, as always.
Excellent, cool. So, what's on the agenda for next week?
Oh, you do this to me every week.
I know. So you should be prepared.
Yeah, so you
that's
should be
right.
prepared.
I should be prepared. We are going to be doing. Oh God. The Stephen King special is what we're doing next week.
Oh, that means I'm going to the cinema at the weekend.
It means you are obviously going to the cinema at the weekend at some point. Me, I'm going to have to look into Stephen King because I don't do horror. So for me, this is going to be, I might be like phoning people going, I'm so scared. Oh my God.
It's only because the new Stephen King It movie comes out. So I thought we'd do a Stephen King special on all the favourite horrors. They're absolutely amazing. So anyway, yes, join me next week. It's going to be a brilliant show. And yeah, I think that's it. Goodbye, everybody, and see you all next week.
Hello, Harry Price here. Good evening. If there's nothing myself and everybody else enjoy here on the other side more is the sit back and relax and listen to Parasearch Radio with its paranormal news, views and reviews from across the UK and beyond. Make sure to find out more about them on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web, whatever they are, to keep up to date with all their broadcasts throughout the week. And I hope you enjoy them as much as we do over here. Hello? Is anybody there?